Stay down, or you'll end up like every other troublemaker in my town. The police captain snarls, gun aimed at a black Marine Corps veteran, a retired special operations officer, standing firm in her own Georgia front yard. With two fierce military dogs at her side, she faces down a squad of armed officers sent under false, suspicious activity claims, all retaliation for her exposing police brutality. What began as intimidation has escalated into blatant threats and property destruction, an orchestrated attempt to frame her. But her elite training and unshakable resolve may yet turn the tables. Can she outsmart the corrupt forces closing in? Stay tuned to find out. Let us know where you're watching from. Hit subscribe and share this story of courage and resistance. The morning sun spilled over the Georgia hills, bathing Rebecca Clark's farm in a golden haze. Kneeling in her vegetable garden, she plunged her hands into the cool, loamy soil, coaxing tomato seedlings into neat rows. The air carried the scent of pine and damp earth, a balm for the 40-year-old retired Marine Corps officer who'd traded battlefields for this quiet corner of Pine Hollow. Her two military dogs, Blitz and Echo, lounged nearby, their sleek forms sprawled on the grass. Blitz, with his keen green eyes, twitched an ear at a distant bird call, while Echo's lean frame remained still, conserving energy honed through years of special operations. Rebecca's life, once defined by covert missions in the Middle East, now revolved around these simple rhythms, until a distant rumble shattered the calm. Dust clouds billowed at the end of her gravel driveway, heralding the arrival of 4 police cruisers. Their tires crunched to a halt, lights flashing like warning beacons. Rebecca rose, brushing dirt from her jeans, her pulse steady despite the intrusion. 18 years in the Marines had taught her to assess threats with cold precision. 8 officers spilled from the vehicles, their tactical vests and rifles a stark contrast to the pastoral scene. Leading them was Captain Daniel Collins, his broad frame and smug grin radiating authority. "Ms. Clark," he called, his tone laced with mockery, "we're here to investigate reports of suspicious activity on your property." Rebecca's dark eyes narrowed, reading the situation like a battlefield. No warrant, no specifics, just a vague accusation, a tactic she'd encountered too often as a black woman in uniform and out. She stepped forward, her movements deliberate, voice calm but firm. "Good morning, Captain. I'll need to see a warrant before you proceed onto my land." Collins' smirk faltered, unaccustomed to resistance. Behind him, the officers fanned out, forming a semicircle that screamed intimidation. One, a young man with a tense jaw, his name tag read Bennett, avoided her gaze, his discomfort a faint crack in their unified front. Collins sauntered closer, his hand resting on his holster. "We don't need a warrant when we've got probable cause," he snapped, eyes glinting with disdain. "Reports of strangers coming and going at odd hours." Rebecca's jaw tightened. The only visitors to her farm were a local beekeeper and a fellow veteran who dropped off eggs weekly, hardly the stuff of suspicion. This wasn't about evidence, it was retribution. Weeks ago, she'd witnessed Collins and his men brutalizing a black teenager, Jamal Harris, outside a convenience store. Her video evidence and formal complaint to the County Review Board, bypassing the corrupt police chief Robert Wilson, had struck a nerve. "I'm not aware of any such activity," Rebecca said, her voice steady, honed by years of crisis negotiation. "Show me a warrant or you're trespassing." Collins's face darkened, his patience thinning. He gestured to his men. "Search the barn and shed. Let's see what Ms. Clark's hiding." The officers moved, their boots trampling her garden beds, crushing zucchini and tomatoes with deliberate malice. Rebecca's chest tightened, but she kept her composure, her military training a shield against the rising anger. She pressed a button on her tactical watch, a subtle signal to Blitz and Echo, resting inside the farmhouse to hold position. As 2 officers approached her barn, Rebecca caught a flicker of movement near her storage shed. Officer James Delaney, wiry and nervous, glanced around before slipping behind the structure. Her instincts screamed, "He's planting something." She'd seen this playbook before. Vague accusations followed by fabricated evidence to justify harassment. Her hand drifted to her pocket, activating a hidden recording device, a precaution born from years in hostile territories where truth was the first casualty. "I do not consent to a search," Rebecca declared, her voice cutting through the morning air, carrying the authority of a Marine officer. "This is private property, and you're violating my constitutional rights." Collins ignored her, stepping closer, his bulk invading her space. "You think that uniform makes you untouchable, don't you?" He sneered, his words dripping with racial venom. "In my town, you're just another troublemaker who needs to learn her place." The threat hung heavy, a deliberate provocation meant to elicit a reaction he could exploit. Rebecca's gaze held his, unflinching. She'd faced warlords and insurgents. Collins' bravado was a pale imitation. "I respect law enforcement," she said, her tone measured, "but I know my rights. You need evidence of a crime in progress to search without a warrant. Produce one or leave." The officers at the barn called out, "Nothing here, Cap." But Collins waved them toward the shed, his eyes never leaving Rebecca. "Keep looking," he barked. "She's hiding something." Bennett shifted uneasily, his hands twitching as if wrestling with his conscience. The other officers, emboldened by Collins' aggression, grew bolder. One kicked over a basket of freshly harvested peppers, the red and green fruits bursting underfoot. Another yanked open her shed door, tossing tools onto the grass. The destruction wasn't about investigation. It was about power, about punishing Rebecca for daring to challenge their authority. She cataloged every move, her mind racing through tactical options. Confrontation would play into their hands, giving them an excuse to arrest her, or worse. Delaney emerged from behind the shed, his face flushed, avoiding eye contact. Rebecca's suspicions solidified. He'd planted something, likely drugs, to frame her. Her complaint against Collins had threatened to expose a department riddled with excessive force allegations, most buried by Wilson's influence. This raid was their attempt to discredit her before the county board could act. She took a slow breath, channeling the discipline that had carried her through firefights. Control the battlefield. Stay calm. Collins stepped even closer, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "You think you're smart, filing complaints, playing the hero? People like you don't belong in Pine Hollow. Keep pushing, and you'll regret it." The racial undertone was unmistakable, a blade meant to cut deep. Rebecca's grandfather, a Vietnam veteran, had warned her about men like Collins, those who wielded badges as weapons, cloaking prejudice and authority. She refused to give him the reaction he craved. As two officers moved toward her porch, intent on entering her home, Rebecca's resolve hardened. She planted herself in their path, her stance unyielding. "You will not enter my house without a warrant," she stated, her voice resonating with command. "This is a constitutional violation, and you know it." Collins' smirk returned, sensing an opportunity. "Sounds like you're threatening officers, Ms. Clark," he said loudly, ensuring his men heard. "Boys, did you hear her hostile tone?" The officers murmured agreement, their choreography practiced, predatory. Bennett remained silent, his eyes darting between Rebecca and Collins. The situation teetered on the edge of violence, every movement a potential spark. Rebecca's mind raced, calculating outcomes. She could comply, but it would mean surrendering her dignity. Resistance might justify their aggression. Her training offered a third path, one she wasn't ready to deploy yet. Blitz and Echo remained her hidden ace, their presence a silent promise of strength. The air grew thick with tension, the officers' hands hovering near their weapons. Collins' gaze bore into her, daring her to make a move. Rebecca stood firm, her recording device capturing every word, every threat. The farm, once her sanctuary, had become a battleground, and she was ready to fight, not with fists, but with the precision and resilience that had defined her service. The next move would be hers, and it would change everything. The Georgia morning hung heavy with tension, the air crackling as Captain Daniel Collins loomed over Rebecca Clark on her farm, his threats still echoing. "Keep pushing, and you'll regret it." Her vegetable garden lay trampled, her shed violated by Officer Delaney's covert planting of evidence. 8 Pine Hollow officers encircled her, their rifles glinting in the dawn light, poised to invade her farmhouse. Rebecca stood resolute, her marine-honed instincts razor-sharp, her hidden recording device capturing every word. She'd refused to yield, her voice a steel blade cutting through their intimidation. Now, as two officers stepped toward her porch, hands on holsters, she knew the moment demanded action, not surrender, but strategy. With a subtle shift of her wrist, Rebecca emitted a sharp, high-pitched whistle, a signal honed in Middle Eastern war zones. The farmhouse door swung open, and Blitz and Echo emerged, their movements a symphony of lethal precision. Clad in black Kevlar vests emblazoned with federal military insignia, the Belgian Malinois descended the steps in perfect formation. Blitz, his green eyes blazing with focus, flanked left, his muscular frame low and menacing. Echo, lean and coiled, positioned himself between Rebecca and Collins, his presence a silent vow of protection. No snarls, no barks, just the eerie calm of special operations assets, trained to neutralize threats with surgical efficiency. The officers froze, their bravado evaporating. Collins' smirk vanished, his face paling as he registered the dog's tactical gear. "Control those animals," he barked, his voice betraying a tremor. Rebecca straightened, her posture shifting to the command stance she'd wielded in combat. "Blitz, Echo, hold position," she ordered, her tone calm but unyielding. The dogs obeyed instantly, their stillness more unnerving than any growl. Blitz's gaze locked onto the nearest officer, while Echo's eyes never left Collins. Each movement calculated, each breath disciplined. Officer Tom Bennett, the young rookie, took a step back, his name tag catching the sunlight. His wide eyes flickered to the dog's insignia, recognition dawning. "Captain," he whispered, barely audible, "those are federal military working dogs." The words hung in the air, a warning unheeded by Collins, who clenched his fists, struggling to reclaim authority. The other officers shifted uneasily, their rifles lowering slightly, instincts warning them these weren't mere pets, but extensions of a warrior's will. Rebecca seized the moment, her voice cutting through the silence. "These are trained federal assets," she said, her words deliberate, carrying the weight of her Marine Corps rank. "They respond to over 100 commands, verbal and nonverbal. Right now, they're in defensive mode." The implication was clear. One word from her could shift their stance to offensive. She stood taller, her dark eyes boring into Collins, daring him to test her resolve. The farm, moments ago a scene of violation, now felt like a battlefield where she held the upper hand. Collins opened his mouth to retort, but a sudden screech of tires shattered the standoff. A white news van skidded to a halt at the property line, its Channel 9 logo gleaming. Emily Parker, a tenacious young reporter, leapt out, her camera already rolling. "We received a tip about police activity at a veteran's residence," she called, her voice sharp and confident. "Care to explain, Captain Collins?" The lens zeroed in on the scene. 8 armed officers surrounding a lone black woman, her garden in ruins, 2 military dogs poised like sentinels. Rebecca's pulse quickened. She hadn't called the media, but someone had. Her gaze flicked to Bennett, whose flushed face and averted eyes hinted at his role as the anonymous tipster. Collins spun toward Emily, his composure fraying. "This is an active investigation," he snapped. "Leave now, or you'll be arrested for interference." Emily stood her ground, camera steady. "We're on a public road, Captain. I have every right to document this." Her footage captured the officers' aggressive postures, the trampled crops, and Rebecca's defiant stance, flanked by Blitz and Echo. The presence of the media shifted the dynamic, a spotlight exposing Collins' overreach. Before he could regroup, another vehicle roared up, a county sheriff's cruiser, its lights flashing but siren silent. Sheriff Marcus Jackson, a grizzled Army veteran with a no-nonsense demeanor, stepped out, his boots crunching on the gravel. His weathered face scanned the scene. The armed officers, the news van, the dogs, and Rebecca unbowed at the center. "Collins," he called, his voice a low growl, "where's your warrant?" The question landed like a grenade, exposing the operation's illegality. Collins stammered, his authority crumbling. "This is a routine investigation, Sheriff. Suspicious activity reports." Jackson's eyes narrowed, taking in the excessive force arrayed against a single woman. 8 armed men for a routine check, he said, his tone laced with skepticism. "On a decorated veteran's property, I'm not buying it." He turned to Rebecca, his gaze softening slightly, recognizing a fellow soldier. Ma'am, you all right? I'm fine, Sheriff, Rebecca replied, her voice steady but edged with resolve. But these officers are trespassing without a warrant, destroying my property, and attempting to provoke a confrontation. She gestured to the shed where Delaney had slunk moments ago. I suspect they planted evidence to discredit me. Jackson's jaw tightened, his military instincts sensing the setup. He turned back to Collins. You got paperwork, or are you just here to harass a citizen? Collins' face reddened, caught between defiance and exposure. We have probable cause, he insisted, but his words sounded hollow, undermined by the absence of documentation. The officers behind him exchanged nervous glances, their unity fracturing under scrutiny. Bennett's hands twitched, his discomfort now palpable, as if wrestling with the weight of his complicity. Emily's camera kept rolling, her voice piercing the tension. Sheriff, is this standard procedure for Pine Hollow PD? Surrounding a veteran's home without legal grounds? Jackson didn't answer. His focus was on Collins. Stand down, Captain, he ordered. You and your men return to your vehicles. Now. The command carried the authority of a man who'd led soldiers in combat, leaving no room for debate. Collins hesitated, his pride warring with the reality of his overstep. He shot Rebecca a venomous glare, his voice dropping to a hiss. This isn't over, Clark. You'll wish you'd stayed quiet. The threat was a desperate grasp at control, but Rebecca met it with an unflinching stare. Her resolve forged in fiercer battles than this. With a curt nod to his men, Collins retreated, the officers trudging back to their cruisers, their raid thwarted. As the dust settled, Rebecca exhaled, her hand brushing Blitz's flank, a silent thank you. Echo remained vigilant, his eyes tracking the departing vehicles. Jackson approached her, his expression grim. I'll need a full report on this, Ms. Clark. This smells like retaliation. Rebecca nodded, her mind already racing to the security footage that had captured Delaney's actions. I have evidence, Sheriff. It's already with my attorney. Emily lowered her camera but kept recording, her eyes bright with determination. Ms. Clark, can you comment on what happened here? Rebecca considered the question, aware of the power of her words. This was an attempt to silence me for speaking out against police brutality, she said, her voice clear. But I won't be intimidated. The reporter nodded, sensing a story that would ripple far beyond Pine Hollow. As the cruisers vanished down the road, Rebecca's gaze lingered on the horizon. The media's presence and Jackson's intervention had bought her time. But Collins' parting words echoed in her mind. She glanced at Blitz and Echo, their disciplined forms a reminder of her strength. The fight was far from over, and she was ready. The Georgia dusk settled over Rebecca Clark's farm, casting long shadows across her trampled garden. The morning's confrontation with Captain Daniel Collins and his Pine Hollow officers lingered like a storm cloud. But the intervention of Sheriff Marcus Jackson and reporter Emily Parker had forced their retreat. Rebecca stood on her porch, her silhouette framed against the fading light, Blitz and Echo at her feet, their Kevlar vests now stowed. The dog's alertness mirrored her own. Years in special operations had taught her that a thwarted enemy often struck harder in the dark. She'd sent her security footage, capturing Officer Delaney's attempt to plant drugs, to her attorney, Laura Mitchell. Now she needed to fortify her defenses and uncover the motive behind the raid. Inside the farmhouse, Rebecca powered up her military-grade laptop, its encrypted software a relic from her Marine Corps days. She activated the Sentinel Protocol, a covert network of veterans designed to protect those targeted by harassment. Alerts pinged to trusted allies within a 50-mile radius, ensuring eyes and ears were on her. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, pulling up property records and news archives. The raid wasn't random. Collins' venom and the fabricated, suspicious activity reeked of a deeper agenda. A pattern emerged. Her land bordered a proposed luxury resort, a pet project of Richard Hayes, a real estate mogul and brother-in-law to Police Chief Robert Wilson. The connection hit like a rifle's recoil. Her complaint against Collins threatened more than his pride. It jeopardized a financial scheme. Rebecca's mind churned, piecing together the puzzle. Hayes's resort needed her land and others nearby to maximize profit, but minority landowners, including herself, stood in the way. The police, under Wilson's sway, were the muscle to force compliance. Her complaint to the county review board, bypassing Wilson's influence, had made her a direct threat. She leaned back, her gaze drifting to Blitz, who patrolled the room's perimeter, his green eyes catching the lamplight. Echo lay near the door, ears twitching at every sound. Their vigilance steadied her resolve. She wasn't alone in this fight. Her phone buzzed with a secure message from Laura. Footage received. Delaney's actions are clear. Filing for an injunction against Pine Hollow PD. Stay safe. Rebecca nodded to herself, then dialed a contact in Veterans for Justice, a nonprofit she'd helped found. Marcus, she said when the line connected, I need intel on Hayes and Wilson. This goes beyond harassment. Marcus, a former Navy SEAL, promised to dig into financial trails. The network's strength lay in its discretion. Veterans like Rebecca knew how to navigate systems and expose corruption without fanfare. As night fell, Rebecca rigged additional security measures. Motion sensors along the tree line, infrared cameras sweeping the property, and a sprinkler system wired to disrupt intruders. She strapped on a tactical vest, not for combat but for readiness, and checked her dog's gear. Blitz's detection skills could sniff out explosives or contraband. Echo's protection training could neutralize armed threats. She whispered commands, reinforcing their alertness. Their bond a lifeline forged in war zones. Across town, in a dimly lit office above Pine Hollow's police station, Collins and Wilson huddled over a table strewn with maps and contracts. Collins' face was a mask of fury, his retreat from Rebecca's farm a wound to his ego. She's got footage, he growled, slamming a fist on the table. If that hits the review board, we're done. Wilson, lean and calculating, steepled his fingers. Then we make sure it doesn't. Hayes needs her land, and we need her silenced. A drug bust will kill her credibility. Collins nodded, his eyes glinting with malice. Delaney's plant is in place. We go back tonight. Burn the house, make it look like an accident. No evidence, no problem. Wilson hesitated, aware of Emily Parker's news report gaining traction. The media's sniffing around. We need deniability. Collins smirked, pulling out his phone. Hayes has guys for that. Private security, no badges. We'll be there to respond to the fire. Their plan crystallized, a midnight raid, a blaze to erase Rebecca's footage, and a frame job to paint her as a criminal. They didn't know her cameras uploaded to a secure cloud, nor that her dogs were more than pets. Back at the farm, Rebecca's instincts prickled as midnight approached. She dimmed the lights, her home a fortress of silence save for the hum of her security system. Blitz's ears perked, sensing something beyond human perception. She checked her tablet, its screen glowing with infrared feeds. 5 figures emerged from the tree line, moving with tactical precision, 3 in civilian tactical gear, 2 in partial police uniforms. Collins's bulky frame was unmistakable, flanked by Delaney's nervous gait. One carried a gasoline can, its purpose chillingly clear. Incinerate her home, her evidence, and her. Rebecca's pulse quickened, but her training suppressed panic. She activated the Sentinel Protocol's emergency alert, notifying nearby veterans of an imminent threat. Her fingers flew over her tablet, triggering the sprinkler system, not to douse a fire yet, but to sow chaos. Water sprayed across the yard, its sudden hiss startling the intruders, their formation breaking as they slipped on wet grass. She crouched by the window, whispering to her dogs. Blitz, Echo, engage. The command unleashed their special operations training, their forms vanishing into the darkness like specters. Blitz circled behind the group, his stealth honed for hostile infiltrations. He targeted the man with the gasoline, lunging with a non-lethal takedown, pinning him to the ground with a low growl. Echo moved laterally, his lean frame a blur as he zeroed in on Collins. With surgical precision, he clamped his jaws on the captain's wrist, forcing him to drop his pistol with a yelp. The other intruders froze, disoriented by the sprinklers and the dog's silent assault. Delaney fumbled for his weapon, but Blitz's warning snarl halted him, the dog's green eyes glowing in the moonlight. Rebecca stepped onto the porch, her silhouette framed by the farmhouse's glow, a tactical flashlight in hand. Drop your weapons, she commanded, her voice carrying the authority of a Marine officer. You're on my property, and you're outmatched. The intruders hesitated, caught between aggression and retreat. Collins, clutching his wrist, spat. "You're done, Clark. You can't stop us." But his bravado wavered as headlights pierced the night. Emily Parker's news van, its floodlights bathing the scene in harsh white. Emily leapt out, camera rolling, her voice cutting through the chaos. "This is live from Pine Hollow. Police officers and armed men caught trespassing on a veteran's property." The broadcast streamed to thousands, exposing Collins' desperation. Behind her, two pickup trucks roared up, carrying veterans from the Sentinel Protocol. They fanned out, their military bearing unmistakable, forming a perimeter that trapped the intruders. State police sirens wailed in the distance, summoned by Rebecca's alert. Collins' face contorted with rage, but the game was up. The veterans disarmed the intruders, securing them with zip ties as state troopers arrived. Rebecca recalled Blitz and Echo with a hand signal, the dogs returning to her side, their mission complete. Emily approached, camera still live. "Ms. Clark, what's happening here?" Rebecca's gaze was steel. "This was an attempt to destroy evidence and silence me for exposing police corruption. They failed." As the troopers cuffed Collins and his men, Rebecca's eyes scanned the horizon. The footage was safe, her allies mobilized, but Wilson and Hayes remained at large. She patted Blitz's flank, whispering, "Good boy." The night had revealed the depths of her enemy's desperation and the strength of her resolve. This was no longer just her fight. It was a war for justice, and she was ready to lead. Georgia dawn broke over Rebecca Clark's farm, its golden rays glinting off the wet grass, where sprinklers had thwarted a midnight arson attempt. The air still carried the acrid tang of gasoline, a reminder of Captain Daniel Collins' failed raid. Cuffed and led away by state troopers, Collins' glare had promised retribution. But Rebecca stood unbowed, flanked by Blitz and Echo, their disciplined forms a testament to her resilience. Emily Parker's live broadcast had turned the night's chaos into a national headline, exposing the Pine Hollow Police's corruption. Now, as veterans from the Sentinel Protocol patrolled her property's perimeter, Rebecca prepared for the next battle. Not on her land, but in the court of public and legal scrutiny. Inside her farmhouse, Rebecca sat at her oak table, her military-grade laptop open to a secure chat with Veterans for Justice. The organization's network buzzed with support, but her focus was on a new ally, Officer Tom Bennett, the young rookie who tipped off Emily and arrived bloodied to warn her of the attack. His pickup truck idled outside, its driver's side door dented from his escape. Bennett's face, bruised and swollen, told a story of betrayal. His colleagues had ambushed him at home, punishing his defiance. Yet here he was, risking everything to expose the truth. Rebecca poured coffee, sliding a mug toward Bennett. "You didn't have to come," she said, her voice steady but probing. "Why take the hit?" Bennett's hands trembled as he gripped the mug, his eyes haunted. "They came to my house, threatened my wife, said I'd pay for snitching. I couldn't stay silent, not after seeing what they did to you." His voice cracked, but resolve hardened his gaze. "Collins and Chief Wilson, they're not just after you. They've been targeting black landowners, forcing them to sell cheap for Hayes's resort." Her pulse quickened, the pieces aligning with her earlier suspicions. She leaned forward, her dark eyes assessing Bennett's sincerity. "You have proof?" He nodded, pulling a USB drive from his pocket. Text messages, call logs, even a recorded meeting where Wilson bragged about clearing the riffraff for Hayes. "It's all here." Rebecca took the drive, her mind racing. This wasn't just harassment. It was a criminal conspiracy, weaponizing police power for profit. But trusting Bennett, a cop from a corrupt department, required caution. She plugged the drive into her laptop, scanning the files. Screenshots showed Wilson's orders to pressure landowners, while audio captured his smug voice. "Clark's land is key. Frame her, and the rest will fold." The evidence was damning, but Rebecca's marine instincts demanded verification. She forwarded the files to Marcus, her contact at Veterans for Justice, with a note. "Cross-check these. Bennett's either our breakthrough or a plant." Marcus replied instantly. "On it. Stay sharp." Outside, Blitz patrolled the yard, his green eyes scanning for threats, while Echo rested near the porch, his lean frame alert. Rebecca's bond with them grounded her amidst the storm. She turned back to Bennett. "You know what this means? Testifying against your department could end your career. Bennett's jaw tightened. I joined to protect people, not bully them. If that cost me my badge, so be it. His conviction echoed her own, forged in the crucible of service. But she reserved judgment, her trust hard-earned. Her phone vibrated with a call from Laura Mitchell, her attorney. Rebecca, the footage from last night is gold. Delaney planting drugs, Collins with gasoline. I've filed for an emergency injunction to block Pine Hollow PD from further harassment. But we've got bigger news. Laura's voice sharpened. The FBI's involved, and the Department of Defense is sniffing around because of your special ops background. They're sending an agent to meet you. Rebecca's brow furrowed. Her classified missions in the Middle East made her a unique target. Corrupt cops wouldn't expect federal scrutiny over a local dispute. She glanced at Bennett, who sipped his coffee, unaware of the escalating stakes. When's the agent coming? She asked Laura. This afternoon. Agent Michael Turner, DOD. He's got jurisdiction over threats to veterans with your clearance level. Stay put and keep Bennett close. He's a key witness. Hanging up, Rebecca studied her farm through the window. The trampled garden, once a symbol of peace, now felt like a forward operating base. She needed to leverage Bennett's evidence while protecting her allies. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock. A tall man in a crisp suit stood at her door, his badge gleaming. Michael Turner, Department of Defense. His military bearing matched hers, his handshake firm. Ms. Clark, he said, we got your Sentinel Protocol alert. Targeting a former Special Ops Marine crosses federal lines, especially with civil rights violations. Rebecca invited him in, gesturing to Bennett. This is Officer Bennett. He's got evidence tying Pine Hollow PD to a land-grabbing scheme. Turner's eyes narrowed, assessing the rookie. Let's see it. Rebecca played the audio files, Wilson's voice filling the room with chilling arrogance. Turner's expression hardened. This is enough for an FBI task force. We'll need your testimony, officer, and your footage, Ms. Clark. Bennett nodded, his bruises a stark reminder of the cost. Rebecca added, my cameras caught everything. Delaney's plant, the gasoline, it's already on a secure cloud. Turner jotted notes, his tone brisk. Good. The FBI is coordinating with the state attorney general. This isn't just about you. It's a pattern of abuse. We'll protect you, but expect pushback. Wilson's got connections. Rebecca's lips pressed into a thin line. She'd faced warlords with less to lose. Wilson's network didn't scare her. I'm not backing down, she said, her voice a quiet vow. As Turner left, promising federal escorts by evening, Rebecca escorted Bennett to his truck. Get somewhere safe, she urged. They'll come for you again. He nodded, his face etched with determination. I'm done running. You need me. I'm here. His truck rumbled away, leaving Rebecca alone with her dogs. She knelt beside Blitz, scratching his ears, her mind on the community now watching her fight. Emily's broadcast had gone viral, sparking outrage and drawing messages from other landowners targeted by Wilson's scheme. Her farm was no longer just a refuge, it was a rallying point. By dusk, the story dominated national news. Clips of Collins' raid, juxtaposed with Emily's footage of the nighttime attack, painted a damning picture. Rebecca's phone buzzed with texts from Veterans for Justice. Community meeting tomorrow. Landowners want to join you. She smiled faintly, the seeds of a coalition taking root. But her relief was short-lived. A police scanner on her table crackled with chatter. Wilson was pushing to seize her footage from the county evidence lockup, claiming chain of custody issues. Rebecca's jaw clenched. She called Sheriff Jackson, her voice urgent. Wilson's trying to tamper with the evidence. Can you lock it down? Jackson's gruff reply came swiftly. Already on it. Deputies are guarding the lockup. He won't touch it. His support bolstered her, but the move signaled Wilson's desperation. She checked her cameras, ensuring every angle was live, and patted Echo's flank. We're not done yet, she murmured. As night cloaked the farm, Rebecca stood on her porch, Blitz and Echo vigilant beside her. Bennett's evidence had cracked open the conspiracy, and federal backing gave her leverage. But the real fight was just beginning. Wilson and Hayes wouldn't surrender their empire without a war. She gazed at the stars, her resolve a fire kindled by injustice. The community was awakening, and she'd lead them into the light. The Atlanta Federal Courthouse loomed like a granite fortress, its columns casting stark shadows across the plaza where Rebecca Clark stood, her presence a quiet storm amidst the gathering crowd. The preliminary hearing against Captain Daniel Collins, Police Chief Robert Wilson, and developer Richard Hayes was set to begin, a crucible where her fight for justice would face its first true test. Dawn's light glinted off her polished boots, a nod to her Marine Corps discipline, while Blitz and Echo sat at perfect attention beside her, their Kevlar vests emblazoned with federal insignia. The dogs, symbols of her resilience, drew murmurs from onlookers, reporters, veterans, and Pine Hollow residents, who sensed the weight of this moment. Rebecca's dark eyes scanned the scene, her resolve tempered by the knowledge that truth, though powerful, was fragile in the hands of a system often swayed by power. Inside the courtroom, the air was thick with anticipation. Rebecca took her seat beside her attorney, Laura Mitchell, whose sharp gaze missed nothing. The gallery buzzed with journalists, including Emily Parker, whose viral reports had elevated the case to national scrutiny. Across the aisle, Collins slouched in an ill-fitting suit, his smirk replaced by a scowl, while Wilson's cold stare betrayed nothing. Hayes, polished and aloof, whispered to his high-priced lawyer, a man known for dismantling whistleblowers. Rebecca's hand brushed Blitz's flank, grounding her as the judge, a stern woman with silver-streaked hair, called the session to order. Laura rose, her voice cutting through the hum. Your Honor, we present evidence of a criminal conspiracy, planted drugs, attempted arson, and targeted harassment of my client, Ms. Clark, a decorated Marine veteran, to silence her complaint against Pine Hollow PD. She submitted Rebecca's security footage, freeze-framed on Officer Delaney slipping a bag of methamphetamine into her shed, and audio of Wilson's chilling orders to handle Clark. The gallery stirred, whispers rippling like wind through a battlefield. Rebecca took the stand, her posture unyielding, her voice steady as she recounted the morning raid. 8 officers, no warrant, her garden destroyed. Collins told me I didn't belong in Pine Hollow, she said, her words deliberate, that I'd regret speaking out against their brutality. The defense attorney, a sleek man named Carver, leapt up, his tone dripping with condescension. Ms. Clark, isn't it true you're a disgruntled veteran, prone to paranoia after years in combat? Rebecca's gaze met his, unflinching. I served 18 years in special operations, sir. I'm trained to assess threats, not imagine them. The footage speaks for itself. Carver pivoted, probing her complaint about the assault on Jamal Harris. You claim to champion justice, yet you escalated a minor incident into a vendetta against our fine police force, correct? Rebecca leaned forward, her voice ablade. I recorded officers beating a teenager for no reason. That's not minor, it's criminal. The judge's gavel cracked, silencing Carver's retort, but his insinuations hung in the air, a calculated attempt to paint her as unstable. Blitz, sensing her tension, shifted slightly. His green eyes locked on Carver, a silent warning. The prosecution called Officer Tom Bennett, whose bruised face drew gasps from the gallery. He limped to the stand, his voice hoarse but resolute. I witnessed a pattern of abuse, he said, detailing Wilson's property improvement campaign. 7 black landowners harassed, their properties coveted for Hayes' resort. Laura played a recording from Bennett's evidence. Wilson's voice, smug and commanding. Clark's land is the linchpin. Frame her, and the others will sell. The courtroom erupted, spectators shouting until the judge demanded order. Collins' face paled, while Wilson's mask of composure cracked, his fingers twitching. Bennett's testimony painted a damning picture. Internal memos, text chains, and covert meetings where Wilson and Hayes orchestrated intimidation. They called it cleaning up Pine Hollow, Bennett said, his voice breaking. I couldn't stay silent, not after they attacked me for speaking out. Laura pressed. Who attacked you, officer? Bennett's eyes met Rebecca's, a flicker of shared resolve. Collins's men, on Wilson's orders. They said I'd pay for betraying the department. The gallery roared again, the judge's gavel a futile shield against the outrage. Carver's cross-examination was brutal, branding Bennett a traitor seeking fame. You're on probation, officer. Desperate to save your job, aren't you? He sneered. Bennett straightened, his bruises a badge of courage. I risked my family's safety to do what's right. That's enough for me. His defiance shifted the room's energy, bolstering Rebecca's fight. She glanced at Emily, whose camera captured every moment, ensuring the truth reached beyond these walls. The prosecution rested, but Carver's closing painted Rebecca as a vigilante whose overzealous complaint sparked chaos. Ms. Clark's actions destabilized a community, Your Honor, he argued. Laura countered, her voice a clarion call. My client exposed corruption, and they tried to burn her life to ashes. The evidence is irrefutable. The judge adjourned for deliberation, her expression unreadable. Rebecca stepped outside, Blitz and Echo at her heels, the dog's presence calming the crowd's fervor. The plaza had swelled, hundreds chanting, "Justice for Clark." Veterans from the Sentinel Protocol stood shoulder to shoulder with Pine Hollow residents, their signs demanding accountability. Rebecca paused, her breath catching at the sight. Her solitary stand had ignited a movement. Emily approached, microphone in hand. Ms. Clark, how do you feel after today? Rebecca's voice was firm, her words measured. This isn't about me, it's about a system that protects the powerful. We're here to change that. As she spoke, a figure in the crowd caught her eye. A man in a hoodie, his face partially obscured, watching her intently. Her marine instincts flared. She signaled Blitz with a subtle gesture, prompting him to scan the perimeter. The man slipped away, but the encounter left a chill. Rebecca turned to Laura, lowering her voice. Someone's watching. Wilson's not done. Laura nodded, her eyes scanning the crowd. The feds are on high alert. We'll keep you covered. The hearing's impact rippled beyond Atlanta. Social media buzzed with clips of Bennett's testimony, hashtags like Nightcheese Stand with Clark trending nationwide. Rebecca's phone vibrated with messages from Veterans for Justice. Landowners ready to testify. We're building a coalition. She smiled faintly, the seeds of resistance taking root. But the hooded figure lingered in her mind, a reminder that victory was fragile. She knelt beside Echo, scratching his ears, her resolve hardening. We're not stopping, she murmured. Back at her hotel, guarded by federal agents, Rebecca reviewed the day's footage with Laura. Blitz and Echo rested nearby, their vigilance unwavering. The hearing had exposed Wilson's conspiracy, but Hayes's wealth and connections posed a looming threat. Laura's voice was grim. The judge is leaning our way, but Carver's pushing for a mistrial. We need more witnesses. Rebecca nodded, her thoughts on the other landowners. I'll reach out. They deserve a voice. As night fell, Atlanta's skyline glittered through the window, a contrast to the shadows Rebecca faced. The plaza's chants echoed in her memory, fueling her purpose. She glanced at Blitz, his green eyes meeting hers, a silent pact. The courtroom had been a battlefield, and she'd held her ground, but the war was far from won. Someone was watching, waiting to strike. Rebecca's hand rested on her tactical watch, ready for the next move in a fight that now belonged to a community rising as one. The Georgia sun blazed over Pine Hollow, its heat a mirror to the fervor gripping the town. Rebecca Clark stood on her farm's porch, her gaze sweeping the fields where her trampled garden was slowly reviving, much like the community rallying around her. The Atlanta hearing had cracked open the conspiracy led by Police Chief Robert Wilson and developer Richard Hayes, with Officer Tom Bennett's testimony and her security footage exposing their campaign against black landowners. Yet the hooded figure watching her at the courthouse lingered in Rebecca's mind, a shadow of the danger still stalking her. Blitz and Echo, her military dogs, lounged nearby, their keen senses attuned to every rustle, their presence a quiet anchor as she prepared to forge a new front in her fight, a coalition to amplify the voiceless. Rebecca's phone buzzed with messages from Veterans for Justice, her nonprofit lifeline. Landowners are ready to meet. Town hall tonight. She nodded, her resolve a steel thread woven through exhaustion. The preliminary hearing had galvanized Pine Hollow, but justice demanded more than courtroom victories. It required unity. She drove into town, Blitz and Echo in the truck's back, their ears pricked as they passed fields targeted by Hayes's greed. At a modest community center, she met Mary Thompson, a widowed grandmother whose orchard bordered the proposed resort, and the Carter brothers, whose cattle ranch had faced relentless police harassment. Their stories echoed hers: vague citations, midnight prowlers, offers to buy their land at a pittance. Inside, Rebecca addressed a growing crowd, her voice steady, honed by years commanding Marines. "We're not alone," she said, her dark eyes meeting theirs. "They want us isolated, but together we're unstoppable." She outlined a plan: document abuses, pool resources, and demand accountability. Veterans for Justice volunteers, former soldiers like her, distributed guides on legal rights and evidence collection, their military precision a stark contrast to the town's past apathy. Mary gripped Rebecca's hand, her voice trembling. "I thought I was fighting alone. Thank you." The Carter brothers nodded, their skepticism softening into resolve. Rebecca's efforts extended beyond Pine Hollow. She collaborated with Emily Parker, whose documentary on the conspiracy was gaining traction, linking similar schemes across Georgia. Emily's footage of the courthouse chants, "Justice for Clark," played on a loop, fueling national outrage. Rebecca reviewed the rough cut at Emily's makeshift studio, suggesting edits to highlight the landowners' voices. "This isn't just my story," she told Emily, her tone firm. "It's theirs." Emily nodded, her camera a weapon in their shared crusade. Back at the farm, Rebecca trained community members in self-defense and surveillance, repurposing her special ops skills. Blitz demonstrated detection, sniffing out a hidden object in seconds, while Echo showcased protection, disarming a volunteer with a padded arm in a fluid motion. The crowd, a mix of young and old, gasped, then cheered, their fear giving way to empowerment. Rebecca's heart swelled. She'd built sanctuaries in war zones. Now she was building one here. Dusk brought a new threat. Mary Thompson's frantic call shattered the evening calm. "They're at my orchard, trashing everything." Rebecca rallied a team of veterans, piling into trucks with Blitz and Echo. They arrived to find a gang of thugs, their faces masked, uprooting trees and smashing irrigation pipes. Rebecca's instincts kicked in, her voice a whip crack. "Blitz! Perimeter!" The dog circled, his green eyes locking onto the vandals, his low growl freezing them. Echo flanked right, his lean frame poised to strike. Rebecca stepped forward, flashlight in hand, her presence commanding. "Drop your tools and leave, or you'll answer to federal agents." The thugs hesitated, outnumbered by the veterans' disciplined formation. One lunged, swinging a crowbar, but Echo intercepted, pinning him without breaking skin, his training a masterclass in restraint. The others fled, but Blitz's bark signaled their path, guiding veterans to detain two stragglers. Rebecca recognized their gear, military surplus, likely supplied by Hayes's private security. Emily, tipped off by a volunteer, arrived, her camera capturing the chaos, her live stream branding the attack as retaliation. "This is Pine Hollow," she narrated, "where greed destroys lives but resistance grows stronger." Sheriff Marcus Jackson's cruiser pulled up, his weathered face grim. "Got IDs on these guys?" Rebecca handed over the detainees, her voice clipped. "They're Hayes's muscle. This was meant to scare Mary into selling." Jackson nodded, cuffing the men. "Feds are tracing Hayes's contracts. This'll bury him deeper." Rebecca's gaze hardened. She'd protected Mary's land, but Hayes's reach was vast, his desperation a ticking bomb. The town hall that night overflowed, the community center's walls vibrating with voices. Rebecca stood at the podium, flanked by Mary and the Carters, their presence a testament to their shared fight. "They want our land, our silence," she declared, her words a rallying cry. "But we're writing a new story, one of justice." The crowd roared, their applause a wave crashing against years of oppression. Veterans for Justice set up tables, enrolling volunteers for legal clinics and patrols. Emily projected her documentary's trailer, its images of trampled orchards and chanting crowds igniting cheers. As Rebecca spoke, a young man in the back caught her eye, his posture too stiff, his gaze too focused. Her marine senses flared. She signaled Blitz with a subtle gesture, prompting him to weave through the crowd. The man slipped out, but not before dropping a small device under a chair. Rebecca excused herself, retrieving it. A listening bug, its red light blinking. Her blood ran cold. Hayes or Wilson was still watching, their network unbowed by the hearing. She pocketed the device, handing it to a veteran tech expert for analysis. Driving home, Rebecca's thoughts churned. The bug suggested surveillance, a prelude to another strike. She checked her phone. Marcus from Veterans for Justice confirmed. Bug's military grade, tied to a security firm linked to Hayes. She tightened her grip on the wheel, Blitz and Echo alert in the back. The community's strength was growing, but so was the enemy's desperation. At the farm, she reviewed her security feeds, ensuring every angle was live. Echo patrolled the porch, his silhouette a guardian in the moonlight. Rebecca sat at her table, sketching plans for the coalition. Messages poured in, landowners testifying, volunteers scheduling patrols. The town hall had transformed Pine Hollow from a place of fear to one of defiance. Yet the bug's discovery gnawed at her. She called Laura, her voice low. "They're listening. We need to sweep every meeting space." Laura's reply was brisk. "Feds are on it. Agent Turner is bringing counter-surveillance gear tomorrow." Rebecca nodded, her resolve afire against the encroaching dark. As midnight cloaked the farm, Rebecca stood outside, Blitz at her side, his green eyes reflecting the stars. Echo rested nearby, his vigilance a silent vow. The community's roar echoed in her memory, a reminder of the power she'd unleashed. She'd faced ambushes in deserts. This was no different. The bug was a warning, but also a mistake. Hayes had exposed his hand. Rebecca's lips curved into a determined smile. The coalition was her army now, and she'd lead them into battle, one step closer to justice. The Georgia night wrapped Rebecca Clark's farm in a tense quiet, the stars obscured by clouds that mirrored the storm brewing in Pine Hollow. The town hall had ignited a coalition of landowners and veterans, their resolve fueled by Emily Parker's documentary and the damning evidence against Police Chief Robert Wilson and developer Richard Hayes. Yet the discovery of a military-grade listening bug at the meeting confirmed Rebecca's fears. Their enemies were circling, desperate to protect their crumbling empire. Blitz and Echo, her loyal military dogs, patrolled the farm's perimeter, their senses sharp as she prepared for the next skirmish. The preliminary hearing had wounded Wilson's conspiracy, but Rebecca knew men like him struck hardest when cornered. Her fight was no longer solitary. It was a war for a community's soul. Inside her farmhouse, Rebecca pored over encrypted messages from Veterans for Justice, her laptop casting a faint glow. Agent Michael Turner's latest update confirmed the FBI's breakthrough. Bank records linked Hayes to shell companies funding Pine Hollow PD's property improvement campaign. The transactions, buried in layers of corporate deceit, revealed payments to officers like Daniel Collins for intimidation operations. Rebecca's jaw tightened. Her land and those of Mary Thompson and the Carter brothers were pawns in a multi-million-dollar land grab. She forwarded the intel to her attorney, Laura Mitchell, with a note. "Push the feds to seize Hayes' records. Time's running out." Her thoughts were interrupted by a faint ping from her security system. A login attempt on her cloud server, where her damning footage resided, had triggered an alert. Rebecca's pulse quickened. Someone was trying to erase her evidence. She traced the IP address, her special ops training guiding her fingers across the keyboard. The signal led to a local server farm, a front for Hayes' operations. "They're hiring hackers now," she muttered, Blitz's green eyes meeting hers from across the room. Echo shifted near the door, sensing her tension. She sent an urgent message to Marcus, her Navy SEAL contact. "Intrusion attempt on my server. Need counter-cyber support." Marcus replied swiftly, "Sending a tech team. Lock down your system." Rebecca activated her server's firewall, rerouting uploads to a secondary cloud. Her farm, once a haven, was now a digital fortress under siege. She checked her cameras, ensuring Blitz and Echo's patrol routes were clear. The dog's vigilance was her first line of defense, but the hacker's move signaled a new tactic. Wilson and Hayes were targeting her evidence before the main trial. By morning, Rebecca met Laura and Karen Brooks, the federal prosecutor, at a secure cafe in Atlanta. Karen's sharp eyes scanned the room before she spoke. "The FBI is raiding Hayes' offices today. Your footage and Bennett's testimony gave us probable cause." Rebecca nodded, her mind on the hacker. "They tried to breach my server last night. Wilson's desperate. Karen's expression darkened. That's obstruction of justice. We'll trace it. Laura leaned in, her voice low. We need more to nail them. Something physical, not just digital. Rebecca's thoughts turned to a lead from Marcus. A warehouse on Pine Hollow's outskirts, rumored to store Hayes' illicit records. I can scout it, she offered, her tone calm but resolute. Karen hesitated. That's risky, Ms. Clark. Let the feds handle it. But Rebecca's marine instincts rebelled. She'd never relied on others to secure a battlefield. I'll be discreet, she said, her eyes unyielding. Laura sighed, recognizing her resolve. Take a backup, and those dogs. That afternoon, Rebecca led a small team of veterans for justice operatives to the warehouse, a rusted structure hidden among pines. Blitz and Echo moved ahead, their noses low, sniffing for traps. The team, including Marcus, fanned out, their military precision a silent force. Rebecca's flashlight cut through the gloom, revealing crates and filing cabinets. Blitz's ears perked, his growl signaling something amiss. She followed his lead to a locked safe, its surface pristine amid the dust. Explosives? Marcus whispered. Rebecca shook her head, trusting Blitz's nose. Documents. He's hiding something big. Using a lockpick from her field kit, Rebecca opened the safe, revealing stacks of forged contracts and ledgers detailing payoffs to Pine Hollow officers. One document caught her eye, a deed transferring Mary Thompson's orchard to a Hayes shell company, dated before any offer was made. This is it, she said, her voice a low thrill. She photographed the evidence, uploading it to her secure cloud. Echo's sudden bark snapped her attention. A security guard, hired muscle, loomed at the warehouse entrance, radio crackling. Move! Rebecca hissed, signaling Blitz to flank. The dog circled, silent as a shadow, pinning the guard with a warning snarl. Marcus secured the man, zip-tying his wrists. Hayes' crew, he muttered. They're guarding a gold mine. Rebecca's team swept the warehouse, collecting more files before retreating. Back at the farm, she sent the evidence to Karen, her message terse. Warehouse docs confirm conspiracy. Hayes is cooked. The raid's success electrified the coalition. At a second town hall, Rebecca shared the findings, her voice resonating with authority. These documents prove Hayes and Wilson planned to steal our land, she said, holding up a printed ledger. The crowd, swollen with new faces, roared, their unity a shield against fear. Mary Thompson hugged Rebecca, tears in her eyes. You gave us hope, she whispered. The Carter brothers pledged their ranch as a meeting hub, solidifying the network. But victory came with a shadow. Marcus called, his voice urgent. The hacker's IP traces to a firm tied to Hayes. And Collins, he's out on bail and off the grid. Rebecca's stomach knotted. Collins, humiliated in court, was a loose cannon. She checked her security feeds, Blitz and Echo pacing the yard, their senses honed. He'll come for me, she told Marcus, her tone steady. Let him try. That night, Rebecca fortified her farm, arming motion sensors and reinforcing locks. She trained with Blitz and Echo, their drills a dance of trust, Blitz detecting hidden objects, Echo practicing takedowns. Her phone buzzed with Karen's update. Hayes arrested. FBI has the warehouse docs. Trials fast-tracked. Relief ward with vigilance. Collins' disappearance was a storm cloud on the horizon. As dawn broke, Rebecca stood on her porch, the Georgia air cool against her skin. Blitz sat at her side, his green eyes scanning the tree line, while Echo guarded the driveway. The coalition's strength grew, but so did the enemy's desperation. She touched the USB drive in her pocket, a copy of the warehouse evidence, her insurance against Collins' next move. The trial loomed, a battlefield where truth would face its final test. Rebecca's resolve burned bright. She'd fought in deserts and mountains. This was her home, and she'd defend it with every ounce of her Marine spirit. The Georgia night cloaked Rebecca Clark's farm in an uneasy hush, the air thick with the scent of pine and impending conflict. The warehouse raid had delivered a crippling blow to Richard Hayes' conspiracy, with forged deeds and payoff ledgers now in FBI hands, ensuring his arrest. Yet the absence of Captain Daniel Collins, who vanished after his bail release, cast a shadow over Pine Hollow's growing coalition. Rebecca stood on her porch, her silhouette etched against the farmhouse's faint glow. Blitz and Echo at her side, their military vests glinting under the stars. Officer Tom Bennett's warning, Collins rallying a final strike before the trial, echoed in her mind. Her coalition, fortified by landowners and veterans for justice, was ready, but Rebecca knew this battle would test their resolve like never before. Inside, Rebecca convened with Sheriff Marcus Jackson and Marcus, her Navy SEAL ally from Veterans for Justice. Maps of her farm spread across the table, marked with defensive positions. Collins won't come alone, she said, her voice steady, honed by years in special operations. He's got hired muscle and a grudge. They'll hit hard. Jackson nodded, his weathered face grim. My deputies are patrolling the roads, but your land's the target. We'll set a trap. Marcus pointed to the tree line. We'll use your cameras and dogs to funnel them here. Open ground, no cover. Rebecca's eyes met Blitz's, his green gaze unwavering. Blitz and Echo will handle the flanks, she said. We end this tonight. The coalition mobilized, Pine Hollow's residents acting as eyes and ears. Mary Thompson's orchard sent alerts of suspicious vehicles, while the Carter brothers' ranch reported armed men gathering nearby. Rebecca's phone buzzed with encrypted updates from Veterans for Justice, their operatives embedded in town, tracking Collins' movements. She armed her security system, motion sensors humming, infrared cameras sweeping the property. Echo patrolled the yard, his lean frame a shadow, while Blitz tested the air, his nose catching faint traces of gasoline, a chilling echo of Collins' earlier arson attempt. By midnight, the farm was a fortress. Rebecca donned a tactical vest, her movements fluid, a Marine preparing for combat. She briefed her team, veterans, deputies, and trusted locals, via radio. No lethal force unless necessary, she ordered, her tone unyielding. We take them alive for the trial. Jackson's voice crackled back. Feds are on standby. Emily's ready to stream if things go south. Rebecca nodded, her trust in Emily Parker's camera a shield against cover-ups. She signaled Blitz and Echo, their drills a silent pact. Protect, neutralize, prevail. At 2:17 a.m., Blitz's low growl pierced the silence. Rebecca's tablet flared with infrared alerts, 6 figures creeping through the tree line, their gear heavy with rifles and explosives. Collins' bulky silhouette led, his desperation palpable. She activated her sprinklers, the sudden spray disrupting their advance, water glinting like shrapnel under moonlight. Positions, she hissed into her radio, taking point at the porch's edge. Blitz flanked left, vanishing into the shadows, while Echo circled right, his stealth a predator's grace. The intruders stumbled, cursing as the sprinklers soaked their gear. Collins barked orders, his voice raw with rage. Find Clark, burn the place. Rebecca's jaw clenched. He planned to destroy her evidence in her, a final act of vengeance. She raised her flashlight, its beam cutting through the dark. Collins, you're surrounded, she shouted, her voice a commander's challenge. Drop your weapons. The intruders froze, caught off guard, but Collins rallied them, raising his rifle. She's bluffing. Move in. Blitz struck first, emerging from the shadows to pin a mercenary carrying a detonator, his growl a warning that halted the man's struggle. Echo lunged at another, disarming him with a precise bite to the wrist, the rifle clattering to the ground. Rebecca's team advanced, veterans and deputies closing the net, their flashlights blinding the intruders. Collins spun, firing wildly, but a deputy's taser dropped him, his scream echoing as he writhed on the wet grass. The remaining mercenaries hesitated, their resolve crumbling as Marcus's team zip-tied them. Emily's news van roared up, its floodlights bathing the scene in harsh white. Her camera streamed live, capturing Collins' defeat, the mercenaries' surrender, and Rebecca's unyielding stance, flanked by Blitz and Echo. This is Pine Hollow, Emily narrated, her voice steady, where a veteran's courage stopped a corrupt cop's final stand. The broadcast reached millions, cementing the coalition's victory. State troopers and FBI agents swarmed in, securing the prisoners, their explosives confiscated as evidence. Rebecca checked Blitz and Echo, her hands steady despite the adrenaline. Both dogs were unharmed, their training flawless. She approached Collins, now cuffed and spitting venom. You lost, Clark, he snarled, his eyes wild. You can't stop the system. Rebecca's gaze was steel. The system's changing, Collins. You just don't see it yet. She turned away, her focus on her team, ensuring no injuries. Jackson clapped her shoulder, his voice gruff. You ran this like a military op. Damned impressive. As the intruders were loaded into vans, Rebecca met Emily's gaze, a silent thank you for her relentless coverage. The reporter's stream had ensured transparency, preventing any cover-up. Marcus approached, his expression grim but satisfied. We got their gear, military grade, Hayes funding. This seals his case. Rebecca nodded, her mind already on the trial. The explosives meant to obliterate her farm were now evidence of Collins' desperation, a nail in his coffin. The coalition gathered at dawn, Pine Hollow's residents crowding her yard, their faces alight with pride. Mary Thompson hugged Rebecca, her voice thick. You saved us all! The Carter brothers raised fists, their ranch now a symbol of resistance. Rebecca addressed them, her voice resonant. This wasn't my win. It's ours. We showed them what unity looks like. Cheers erupted, a wave of defiance that echoed beyond the fields. Yet Rebecca's vigilance lingered. She knelt beside Blitz, scratching his ears, her thoughts on the trial's final act. Collins's attack, though thwarted, revealed the depths of his allies' resolve. She checked her tactical watch, its signal linked to Veterans for Justice, ready for any counterstrike. Echo sat nearby, his lean form a sentinel, his eyes scanning the horizon. The farm, battered but standing, was a testament to her fight, not just for her land, but for a community reborn. As the sun climbed, Rebecca stood tall, the coalition's strength a fire in her chest. Emily's camera lingered, capturing her flanked by Blitz and Echo, a warrior forged in battle now leading a new mission. The trial awaited, a battlefield where truth would face its ultimate test. Collins' defeat was a victory, but Rebecca knew justice was a marathon, not a sprint. She patted Echo's flank, her resolve unyielding. Pine Hollow was hers to protect, and she'd fight until the shadows were gone. The Georgia dawn painted Rebecca Clark's farm in hues of amber and hope, the scars of battle softened by the morning's gentle light. The final clash with Captain Daniel Collins and his mercenaries had cemented Pine Hollow's coalition, their victory broadcast live by Emily Parker, sealing the fate of a corrupt empire led by Police Chief Robert Wilson and developer Richard Hayes. Now, as Rebecca stood on the steps of the Atlanta Federal Courthouse, the air thrummed with anticipation. Hundreds gathered, veterans, landowners, and supporters, their voices a chorus of defiance. Blitz and Echo flanked her, their military vests gleaming, symbols of a fight that had transcended her farm to ignite a movement. Rebecca's dark eyes surveyed the crowd, her marine-honed resolve tempered by a quiet pride. The trial's verdict was moments away, and with it, a chance to reshape a broken system. Inside the courtroom, the air was electric, the gallery packed with faces from Pine Hollow and beyond. Rebecca sat beside Laura Mitchell, her attorney, whose fierce advocacy had carried them through months of legal warfare. The judge, her silver hair a crown of authority, read the indictments: conspiracy, attempted murder, evidence tampering, and civil rights violations. Collins, Wilson, and Hayes sat stone-faced, their empire of greed laid bare by ledgers, footage, and Officer Tom Bennett's courageous testimony. Rebecca's hand rested on Blitz's head, his steady presence grounding her as the judge declared, guilty on all counts. Cheers erupted, muffled by the gavel's sharp crack. But the verdict was a thunderclap. Decades in federal prison for the conspirators, a beacon of accountability. Outside, Rebecca faced the crowd, her voice resonant against the courthouse's granite facade. Today isn't about victory, she began, her words a call to action. It's about accountability. For too long, power protected itself, but we've shown what unity can do. The crowd roared, signs waving, justice for Pine Hollow. As Blitz and Echo sat at perfect attention, their disciplined forms a testament to her leadership. Emily's camera captured the moment, her documentary now a national touchstone, while federal marshals escorted Collins past, his handcuffs clinking, his glare meeting Rebecca's unwavering gaze. She felt no triumph, only resolve. A Marine's duty to protect, fulfilled. The verdict's ripples spread far beyond Atlanta. Investigations into similar land-grabbing schemes uncovered corruption in 3 neighboring counties, with FBI task forces dismantling networks of payoffs and intimidation. Rebecca's coalition, now formalized as the Pine Hollow Alliance, pushed for reforms, independent civilian oversight boards, mandatory body cameras, and audits of police seizures. Sheriff Marcus Jackson, appointed interim chief, implemented these changes, his Army roots guiding a department reborn. Bennett, promoted to community liaison, stood beside Rebecca, his bruised past a badge of honor. "You changed everything," he told her, his voice thick. Rebecca nodded, her trust in him now ironclad. Her farm transformed into a hub of renewal. Rebecca converted her barn into a training center, teaching veterans and civilians to document abuses and navigate legal systems. She launched a program for veterans with PTSD, pairing them with service dogs trained in her field. Blitz demonstrated detection drills, sniffing out mock evidence, while Echo led protection exercises, his precision inspiring awe. Mary Thompson volunteered, her orchard now a community garden, while the Carter brothers donated equipment, their ranch a sister site for coalition meetings. Rebecca's mornings began with runs through the fields, Blitz and Echo at her heels, their bond a lifeline in a world still healing. Emily's documentary won accolades, its stark images of Pine Hollow's resistance sparking national debates on police reform. Rebecca appeared in its final scenes, not as a hero, but as a catalyst, her voice urging collective action. "Justice isn't a moment," she told viewers. "It's a movement we build together." The film's impact drew lawmakers to Pine Hollow, where Rebecca and the coalition lobbied for statewide oversight laws. Karen Brooks, the federal prosecutor, joined a national task force, using Pine Hollow as a model to combat economic exploitation disguised as law enforcement. Yet Rebecca remained vigilant. Late one evening, as she reviewed coalition plans, text from Marcus flashed. "New intel, Hayes' firm still active, low profile." Her instincts flared. The system's roots ran deep. She swept her farm for bugs, Blitz's nose confirming the property was clean. Echo patrolled the porch, his lean frame a sentinel against the night. Rebecca called Laura, her voice low. "They're not done. We need to monitor Hayes' old network." Laura agreed, coordinating with Agent Michael Turner for ongoing surveillance. The coalition's strength grew, with chapters forming in 15 states, inspired by veterans for justice. Rebecca trained new leaders, her special ops discipline shaping civilians into advocates. At a community event, she stood with Mary and the Carters, their faces alight with purpose. "This is our legacy," she told them, her hand brushing Echo's flank. The crowd, diverse yet united, cheered, their voices a promise of change. Children ran through the fields, their laughter mingling with the hum of rebuilding, a community no longer silenced. As dusk fell, Rebecca jogged across her land, Blitz and Echo bounding beside her, the horizon ablaze with promise. The trial had ended, but her mission endured. She paused, kneeling to touch the soil, now sprouting new crops. Her farm, once a battleground, was a beacon of resilience. Colin's defeat was a step, not the summit. True justice lay in systems reformed, communities empowered. She looked at Blitz, his green eyes reflecting her fire, and Echo, his steady presence, a vow of protection. Rebecca's phone buzzed, a message from a new coalition member, a landowner facing harassment in another county. "Need your help," it read. She smiled, her resolve a flame that refused to flicker. "We're coming," she whispered, her voice a vow to the stars. The run resumed, her dogs matching her stride, the dawn a canvas for a fight that would never end. Pine Hollow had risen, and Rebecca Clark, once a solitary warrior, now led a movement that would echo through generations. Rebecca Clark's journey from a lone veteran to a beacon of justice shows the power of courage and community against corruption. Her fight in Pine Hollow reminds us that change begins when we stand together, refusing to be silenced. What did her story stir in you? Have you faced injustice or seen collective action spark hope? Share your thoughts below. We'd love to hear your voice in this conversation. If Rebecca's resilience inspired you, hit that subscribe button to join us for more stories of defiance and triumph. Tell us where you're listening from and share this tale with someone who needs to know they're not alone. Thank you for being part of this journey, for lending your heart to a story of unbreakable spirit. We're grateful for you and can't wait to meet again for the next chapter of courage. Until then, keep standing tall.